You are listening to The Insider with Brian Lloyd. The opinions expressed are that of the individuals and can sometimes be of an adult nature.
On today's Insider podcast, I'm joined by Fergal Reilly, director of the Angry Birds movie, as you can see it right there in our little video. Fergal, thanks for talking to us. If I'm right in saying your kind of journey to directing, you started off as a storyboard artist, if I'm right in saying that.
That's correct.
And you worked on one of my absolute, and I generally, I'm not just saying this because you're here, one of my all-time favourite films, The Iron Giant.
That's right.
Tell me all about that. Tell me about The Iron Giant to start off with.
The Iron Giant was made in between the years of 1996 and 1999, and I got the opportunity to work with Brad Bird, who was one of my early mentors, and I'd only worked on a couple of movies at that point, 4 or 5, and I mean, that was kind of an amazing experience for everybody. Everybody kind of knew it was a special project from the start. We'd never heard a story like that pitched to us before. A single mom, trying to raise a kid alone, and set in 1950s sort of Cold War era. And so all those ingredients made it sort of a little bit different, and people were very excited to work on it. So it was a very young crew that worked on it too.
It's one of those films that I think it really does kind of resonate. And as you say yourself, like you were expecting something, you knew you were working on something special. But from your perspective, I mean, you're working with Brad Bird. I mean, applying this to Angry Birds, I mean, did you take any kind of like direction of him, as in like, that's how I'm going to work an animation room, or that's how I'm going to work a voice cast, or?
Absolutely. Everything from the way Brad sort of approached the story to, to his sort of his early thinking about, how to infuse comedy into character, and also, just he had a different approach to the way he blocked scenes, and even the way he communicated with the crew, like you picked up on all those cues, and I was lucky enough to be in the story department, and there was only, at the end there was only 4 or 5 of us, so we the beginning it was a little bit larger, but not too much, and so you got to work with him every day and sort of see his process up close and see the way he dissected story and dissected character and built things, broke them down and then built them back up to sort of make them stronger ideas, so I learned all that stuff.
Tell me, just actually on Angry Birds, because I mean, obviously I'm assuming you're storyboard artist, and obviously you're working off a director's kind of viewpoint, as in like I want it to look like this and I want it to look like that and so on and so forth. But with Angry Birds, I mean that it's a video game, that sort of way, or a phone game, I suppose. I mean, there's already that kind of, the imagery has already been built around it, so now it's up to you to kind of animate it. I mean, I'm just wondering, just you as a storyboard artist, I mean, did you find that restrictive? No,
not at all. The game sort of is its own thing, and it's sort of a very simple world, right? And the creatures that are in it, the birds that get slung from the slingshot, are just icons. They have no personalities. So a lot of people ask, well, how did you translate, or how do you translate a video app into a movie? And the question, it seems like a huge challenge, but for a story artist, you often start off with very, very simple premises, even just the title of a movie, and you're starting off from scratch trying to build character and construct story, and it's a sort of an organic process. The great thing about this property was that they gave us complete freedom to sort of create the world that we wanted to build, and and the characters that we wanted to create comedically, and personality wise, we had carte blanche. So,
really?
Yeah.
That's interesting, just because I mean, again, like, I mean, they are such visual kind of like creatures and so on and so forth, so I mean, you're kind of building it off that.
I mean, we had the basic icons of with these 3 guys, like Red, who's the main character. He's a red bird with big eyebrows, and we have Chuck and we have Bomb, and in the game in the game we know that each of them has a power. You know, like Bomb's power is
he can speed up.
He explodes.
He explodes.
You know,
yeah.
And then Chuck is the one who's really zippy. You know, so we just expanded those ideas into their personalities. You know, it sort of goes back to that idea that I learned from Brad about taking physical comedy traits and sort of infusing them into the character and sort of using those as tools to develop the personalities of the character. So, you know, every step of the way in animation is an opportunity to add another layer.
Yeah.
And so the first layer that you have is, of course, the basic premise of the game, which is very simple. So we basically took that basic premise and said, let's make our own story and let's start building our own characters. And then the next thing was we took the very basic traits of the game, you know, the game characters, like Chuck is very fast, and we sort of expanded those into personality traits. And then when John Vitti came on board to write the script, I mean, he's a
legend. I mean,
he's a genius.
He's just an absolute genius.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's let's say genius a few more times.
No, but genuinely, like, I mean, he worked on like The Simpsons, like he did like
Arrested Development,
like he's
even
an absolute,
SNL.
He's incredible, like
And so, you know, he has a very unique approach to building characters, and you know, that was the first signal to me when I was hired as a director, along with Clay, to that this was going to be a different sort of a project. It wasn't going to be just literally
the Angry Birds game movie.
It was going to stand on its own, and it was going to have its own personality and its own sort of, you know, its own sort of unique point of view, and so, you know, it did, even from the writing. And then of course our producer John Cohn was brilliant in being able to sort of help us cast what I believe is one of the best contemporary comedy casts of recent times. I mean, that the movie is just seeping with with great comedy talent, you know, and it was hard to assemble all those guys for one project, but we did it. You know?
I was gonna say that actually, because like, I mean, when I saw the announcement and I saw the cast, like you have Jason Sudeikis and you have Bill Hader, and a lot of these guys, as you say, like they worked on Saturday Night Live, and I would imagine there's a lot of improv, you know, that sort of way. And I'm just wondering, but like again, like if it's animation, it's the sort of thing that like it's been animated literally 3 months ago, and they're just coming in to do it. So there's a disconnect between the two. Am I right in saying that?
No, it's the opposite.
Oh, really?
So we don't animate anything
until they're done.
Until we work and have the complete voice recording, because we use, I mean, for me and Clay as well, we use the process like another opportunity to write better comedy. Yeah. And we sort of approached it very much the way, you know, a live action comedy would be made, in the fact that we use the recording sessions almost like improv, experimental, you know, we tried out lots of different types of ideas and push the comedy in different directions. And with those guys, especially, you know, Jason Sudeikis, Josh Gad, Danny McBride particularly, they write all their own material. And so to get them to invest in it, they want to infuse, you know, like they want to sort of infuse it with their own personalities and with their own ideas for creating character. And so we just took that to the max. I mean, we just, you know, we had probably over 100 recording sessions with the cast over the space of a year and a half, and 6 to 8 hour sessions sometimes, and it was just, we used that as sort of we used every recording session as a springboard and a petri dish for sort of creating new ideas comedically. Yeah, I mean, and then it's animated. Only then
does it get animated. Yeah. I mean, that must make it like not necessarily expensive, but it must make it quite arduous. I mean, like what I mean by that is that like it's great that you've got all this creativity and all this, but like I'm sure John Vitti is like, listen, just stick to what I wrote, because you know, like we've got animators waiting here, we've got all these people waiting, just stick to what's on the paper. Like, I mean, for you as a director, like, I mean, how was that? Like,
well, the great thing was, you know, the first time we showed Vitti, you know, our new sort of our newly freshly cut sort of scenes with the new voices and the new characters, you're always nervous because you know you're sort of you want to be very respectful of what he was trying to do tonally, and we were. But the thing that I always, you know, myself and Clay always talked about was, you know, and when the first time we showed it to John, he was like, "Oh, this is great! This is coming to life." It was pointing us, and he said, "I just feel like you guys are on to something. So keep going with it." He's very used to, as a comedy writer,
to having his stuff chucked out,
having stuff, trying out new stuff, writing material on the spot. We would often get pages from the day of a record or the night before a record, and we'd be trying out new stuff, you know. So he was very used to that process, you know, having come from live television, and also, you know, I mean, he did a little bit on SNL, but also, you know, working on
Arrested Development, all those stuff. Like, and that's Arrested Development is really like improv stuff.
And you know, one of the great lessons I learned was, you know, you never stop trying to push the comedy. So you're always trying to look for the better idea.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the most spontaneous part of the animation process is working with the actors in the recording studio. So that's where we sort of we just were like, let's capture the light in the bottle, and you know, it's a lot cheaper than having a crew of 100 you standing around you with a camera turned on, you know. That was, you know, it was exciting because we turned over a lot of material very quickly, and we would try out a lot of different things in boards, and then it would move on to the next stage. At the same time, we were sort of building our previs crew and building the world and designing the characters and figuring out how to take this guy and, you know, I mean, for example, Mighty Eagle's wings. We decided we wanted to create, technology wise, we had to figure out a way of creating a new feather system. So Mighty Eagle's wings alone have like 4 million single strands of hair that are used just for his wings, and that's in every single shot. So you know, all that was going as we were sort of building the story, and working with the actors, and you know. It's a very unique process that way.
I mean, just in terms of like, you know, feather systems and stuff like that. I mean, the one I always think of is Monsters Inc. and the one for John Goodman's character, and that was something. I don't think it was as high as 4 million, but it was something incredible. Like, I mean, it's the sort of thing that, you know, these like 3D animated comedies. I mean, they are the sort of thing that, you know, and because I haven't seen the film, but it's the sort of thing that they can age quite quickly, can't they? And there is the sort of thing of like, whatever it's called, the law, I forget the name of Murphy's Law or whatever it's called, but you know, it's constantly being updated and stuff like that. So I mean, was there a point during the production that you're like, okay, right, we've got to move it on now because technology has kept up with it, or was it a case of no, we're sticking it to this and we're keeping it to this kind of era?
I think, you know, what you set out to do at the beginning is we wanted to sort of signal to the audience that the movie is not just a cheap, you know, rip-off of the game. It's a world-class, you know, family comedy that will appeal to everybody, but it will be like going to watch a Pixar movie or going to watch a Disney movie. And particularly mine and Clay's background, he came from Disney feature, where he was directing animator for 17 years, and I came from Warner Brothers, Sony. You know, we'd worked on very high level features, and we wanted that, you know, to be the case with the Angry Birds movie. So you know, we put a lot of thought and sort of development into making it look beautiful, making it look very rich, and so, you know, it will stand the test of time. You know, and you know, you develop your systems on each picture and you put them in a pipeline, and then at that point the machine is turned on and you are going. You have your deadline, and you have, you know, your crew, and they need to be fed in every single department. So we had a big, you know,
It's almost on autopilot at that
Yeah.
stage. Like when it gets
Yeah.
going, like it's just like that's it. Like
Yeah.
it will hit that time at that point, and so on,
and lighting is always the last to come in, and it's a very complex process, especially with we had a brand new sort of rendering system, Arnold, that Sony Pictures Imageworks was developing. And the great thing about working with those guys is, most of the movies that they make are live action effects movies.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of depth to their technology, and they've rendered just about anything you could think possible. The water in this movie is extraordinary.
I saw that. I saw that thing with the eagle peeing into the thing. Yeah.
Well, there is that.
that's what, when you said water, like that was one thing.
The waterworks. The waterworks scene. So we had a great, at the same time, that Imageworks is working on any one of their animated movies. They're also working on one of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Or, whatever. They usually have 3 or 4 pictures going at the same time. So it's a huge crew in Vancouver. But we always felt, that we had a very sophisticated look. And the technology is it's
fast
setting
moving.
a standard even to Imageworks. They told us that our visual effects supervisor, who's brilliant, Danny Dimian is his name, shout out to him, he is setting new standards with this film in terms of like the look of it and just the way it's lit and beautiful.
Talk to me about the cast, because I mean, again, like we were saying, like a lot of these guys are improv people and so on and so forth. I mean, did you have like a kind of a magic or like I suppose a dream list in mind? I mean, was there someone specific that you wanted, or was it a case of these guys were the guys we wanted from the start? Or have I put you on the spot?
Well, the casting process is always interesting, but when we figured out what kind of personalities the birds were, we more or less got our pick. It was kind of amazing. In fact, we were blown away by some of the cast that we could get. Like Peter Dinklage was a complete surprise for me. I mean, he was on Game of Thrones, and he's a huge star now, and we didn't know, if he would be interested in doing like a comedy like Angry Birds. He had done voiceover before on the Ice Age movies,
and he did Destiny as well.
Yeah. But and he definitely has a comedic. Brilliant comedic aptitude. So, but I just didn't think he was such a huge star. I didn't think we'd ever get him, and we did it. It was just like, he is the voice of Mighty Eagle, and it's awesome, It just,
What's he like?
He's
because I always see him in interviews. He always seems very serious. Like he's always very
intense.
considered.
Yeah.
But you'd kind of want that for an eagle, though, I suppose. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Like particularly a Mighty Eagle. He's mighty in every way. No, I mean he's a super sweet guy. And when we recorded him, he was on a break from Game of Thrones. And I met him in New York, and we recorded in a studio in Manhattan. And the first thing he did when he came in the door was he just walked straight over to the table. I was prepping for the record, and he just stuck out his hand, and he was like, I'm Peter, and needs no introduction.
Yeah,
really,
of course.
We sat down he wasn't interested in getting started straight away. He wanted to sit down and chat, and when do you get that opportunity to sit down? And so he sat down, and I started like just firing questions about Game of Thrones,
wouldn't
working
you?
in Belfast, and he
of
loved
course,
Belfast. He'd been there with his family. He'd been all around Donegal, and he loved working at the Titanic studios.
Yeah, Harlan Wolff. Yeah, that's right.
Where they shoot them. So absolute gentleman and sort of total professional. In terms of like, he applied himself to doing the voice just as intensely and just as hard as he would as if he was
on the set of Game of Thrones.
On Tyrion, with Tyrion. So, and he got into it straight away. Every actor sort of has a different approach and a different way to get into their part. But and comedy actors are very fluid.
Yeah, and they're very physical as well. Yeah,
very physical. Peter's was more studied and sort of, he brought his own ideas and and we would discuss and then start building things, and it was a really great experience.
Did you tape them? Because I remember I was watching this documentary about the animate. You would, yeah.
Always do. Every single session we would record just for the animators, so they have some of the
mannerisms.
Mannerisms and the characteristics physically, like that. They would it would give them clues as to the tone of the moment, and they use that stuff a lot. So.
Yeah, I know, because that's become a big thing with animation. Okay, tell me this: what films did you watch? During production, did you watch any films yourself, just to kind of give you a kind of an idea about what kind of what the tone of the film was going to be, or how you wanted the comedy to look like?
Yeah, we did. Well, obviously, when we were casting, I watched all the movies that the cast has worked on. Particularly Jason's and all the TV work that Danny had done, and so you really study that stuff. But then we looked at a lot of different kinds of comedies. When we were searching for the particular personality types, everything from Peter Sellers movies, just because I just love Peter Sellers. He's just, all the way up to,
Pink Panther stuff kind of thing, or
all of the stuff, all of it, even the obscure ones, from that all the way up to all the way up to the Judd Apatow stuff, which is kind of the tone of what we were, tonally that was where we were, we were sort of pushing.
You're aiming for that kind of,
like that sort of conversational comedy. It doesn't appear too written. Just allowing like a spontaneity into the process. And just looking for cleverness. Every step of the way. So.
It's really interesting. Having worked on this, because obviously this is your first animated film. Do you see yourself continue on in animated films, or would you like to kind of migrate into live action stuff, or what would you like to do?
I've gone back and forth, as a story artist, and I'd probably do the same in for me, it's always been a fairly easy crossover. I've never sort of treated. And maybe that was because I worked with Brad early on, because it felt almost like The Iron Giant was a live action picture.
Yeah, it did.
Respects, I've always sort of jumped back and forth, on different projects, and I've always sort of approached it the same way. And when I started working in live action, as a concept artist and a storyboard artist, the approach I took was the same stuff that I'd learned in animation, and live action directors I found were responding to that a lot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about breaking down the scene and doing action sequences. They were actually letting me throw
a few ideas into it,
a lot of concepts into it, and sort of with Sam Raimi, he let us put an awful lot of our own. I designed the fight between
Doc Ock
and Spidey on the train, and that took us.
Love that scene.
Yeah, originally that scene was a 12-minute scene, and then we cut it down to. There was just so much material that we tried, and there was a lot of learning. Sam basically treated the movie like it was an animated movie almost. So we would throw a lot of ideas in there and toss a lot of stuff out and try a lot of different sort of things for not just the action blocking, but also character moments and stuff like that.
Is it the sort of thing, working on working with Sam Raimi and those sort of things, and I always kind of wonder, like, I mean, and it's not a complaint as such, but like there is very much a kind of a visual language with, you know, big comic book films like that, you know, that sort of way.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I mean, is it the sort of thing, you obviously working as a storyboard artist, so you're obviously kind of matching them up and you're trying to work them all together and so on and so forth. I mean, is it the kind of thing that you are working off a kind of a formula, or is it a case of you're working whatever the director gives you? I mean, how would that work?
There's definitely no formula involved. What I found, each director has their own style, their own way of doing things. And, you know, for example, if you were working with Sam, he might say something like, you might try out an idea for, you know, a move, you know, a camera move, and he might say, no, I want to do more of a push-pull thing. Like, you know, one of his signature things is, you know,
Evil Dead, where he like zooms right in.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
he moves the camera a lot, you know, but he always, and this will surprise people about Sam, he has a rigorous and fully sort of realized idea about blocking scenes and crossing the 180 and when to cut when you cross, and you know, a lot of people would think, well, no, he doesn't, because the camera is moving all over the place. But
it looks like it is,
it's actually very disciplined in where he cuts and when he cuts, and he cuts to the frame. It's very he has a lot of discipline, a lot of he knows exactly what lens he's using. And honestly, it was the best education for me, because he would take me around, like I'd scout locations with him, and he would
he'd be almost telling you where he's going to put the camera.
And he would say, I want you to, like, he gave me a video camera, and, you know, for example, there was a scene, you know, the wedding scene in the church, and, you know, he said, now block this scene out for me, okay? I'm going to put James here, you know, Kirsten's going to go here, Ferg, stand over here, and let's block this scene, okay? Let's do the reverse, you know, maybe we can do a move on this, you know, what do you think? You know, and he would, it was a very sort of, and then he'd say, you know, I'm going to shoot that, like Bill Pope would be standing there as director of photography,
the photographer, of course,
and he would say, Bill, I want to shoot this on an 18 or a 25 or whatever prime he wanted to, you know, or sometimes it wasn't that, but it was a great way to sort of
see it in action,
and see the practical aspects of blocking a scene, you know, and when to move your camera, when to cut, you know, it's a craft that you really only can learn by
seeing it. You can go to
and,
film school and
and then so you would see that, and then you would see it all the way from pre-production, where you, like, I worked with, for example, Dion Lamb, who was the choreographer for all the fight sequences on that, and that was kind of a first to bring sort of a Hong Kong action choreographer over. And basically Sam would say, you're going to sit in a room with Dion and you guys are going to teach each other
how to do it.
Because he's not familiar with, you know, the conventions of the comic book genre, and you're not familiar with the conventions of, you know, how he blocks action. And so I was like, done. So the two of us would sit with you know, a model of Spider-Man and a model of Doc
and you're
Ock.
literally just playing with them,
and
kind of thing.
and like, he's tentacle number 1 is going to move this way, and now how would Spidey move, you know? And I'd say, well, traditionally, you know, Sam wants the sort of traditional pose aspect of Spider-Man to be sort of somehow kept in the action, and then Dion said, but what if he did this? You know, and he would change the choreography, and it sort of became this great dance between the two characters, and sort of we spent like 3 or 4 months just working on the train sequence alone, you know, and it was, and then I would go with Dion and we would work with the wire work and sort of shoot some of his performers and figure out, you know, and then back to drawings and, you know, blocking the scene that way, and sort of figuring out it was a very organic way to work.
Yeah.
You know, and then you would take that and bring it into editorial, and you get to work with Bob Moravsky, who's now an Oscar-winning editor. But
of course,
and you would see the way Sam would cut, and he would have you sit there and watch.
As he literally
take 2 frames off that. Take I wanted this double cut, or I want this to overlap, and you'd say, well, how can you overlap it like that? You've cut more frames, and then you see it cut, and organically it would just feel right. You know, it would. So it was a brilliant way to learn, and sort of it was very natural for me, because in animation you're cutting in frames anyway.
Of course, yeah.
So you generally understand the timing of things, the way things move physically, and how to get sort of that kind of timing onto a digital character, you know. So it was a great experience. We worked the hardest, you know, we've ever worked.
I'd say you would, yeah.
We were working until 3-4 in the morning, and then getting up 2 hours later to go onto a set, or, you know, to start working on the next sequence. But it was like, it was film school for me.
I was gonna say that, because I know, like, Sam Raimi, like, he is very much like, he learned by doing himself, like when he was with the Coen Brothers and stuff like that. He was doing Blood Simple, like, and I've heard that he does keep a very kind of collegiate atmosphere, like, it's in like, right, you're going to learn how to do this today, and you're going to do that.
He stuck me with the second unit director, who did not want to work with a story artist or a storyboard artist. This guy was hardcore, old school. Kind of. He'd come onto a set and he'd block the scene the way he'd want, and he'd shoot. He'd put 6 cameras around it, and he'd shoot the action the way he wanted to. And Sam was like, "No, you're going to learn the discipline of that. You can't do that on this movie because we have a digital character here that costs tens of thousands every time you put him in on a frame of film. So we have to be disciplined about how we're going to shoot." And
economic as well, I'd imagine. That sort of thing, like every shot counts, kind of thing.
And you know, the only guide they had were the drawings that we were making. You know, later on we sort of incorporated more previs into it, but the only guide we had for what the character was, Spidey was moving, was the drawings, the storyboards we were making. So we made very, very elaborate reels with, you know, multiple moving shots and all kinds of, you know, craziness and drawings. They're quite beautiful to look at, you know, like when you see them even now, but they, you know, it was a lot of work.
I'd imagine. Fergal, honestly, I'm not kidding, I could talk to you all day about Spider-Man. I genuinely could, because I really enjoyed it. We're going to have to leave it there. Fergal, thanks so much.